In 1939, Canada did not possess a single tank factory. 6 years later, Canadian workers had produced more armored vehicles than Italy and Japan combined. Factories that once assembled locomotives and automobiles transformed almost overnight into arsenals churning out tanks, armored cars, and self-propelled guns. This is the story of every armored vehicle Canada designed and manufactured during the Second World War. We begin with the tanks. The Ram tank was born from desperation and ingenuity. In 1941, Britain desperately needed tanks, but lacked the factory capacity to build them. Canada answered the call, despite having never manufactured armored vehicles. Engineers at Montreal Locomotive Works took the mechanical guts of the American M3 medium and wrapped them in an entirely new hull designed from scratch. The result was the Ram, it featuring a proper rotating turret, when the American original still relied on an awkward side-mounted gun. The Ram Mark I carried a 2-pounder gun, while the improved Mark II packed a 6-pounder capable of threatening most German armor. Nearly 2,000 Rams rolled off the Montreal production line, yet here is the twist in the story. The Ram never fired a shot in anger as a gun tank. By the time armored divisions deployed to Europe, the American Sherman had become the Allied standard. Military planners faced a choice: scrap nearly 2,000 perfectly good tanks, or find them a new purpose. They chose reinvention, and that decision would reshape modern warfare. When Allied High Command chose the Sherman as their standard tank, Montreal's Angus shops pivoted immediately. The result was the Grizzly, Canada's own Sherman variant. And workers who had previously assembled railway locomotives now welded tank hulls, many of them women filling roles left empty by men overseas. The Grizzly featured a cast armor hull, a 75mm main gun, and modified tracks designed for the mud of Northern Europe. Only 188 Grizzlies were completed before priorities shifted. Most trained tank crews on home soil rather than seeing combat overseas. But the Grizzly proved that factories in this country could match the quality of Detroit or Birmingham when called upon. Now let us turn to armored personnel carriers, where military innovation truly shone. Recognizing that infantry advancing alongside tanks were horrifically vulnerable to German machine guns and artillery. Commanders developed an elegant solution using obsolete Ram tanks. By removing the turret and internal ammunition storage, engineers created the Ram Kangaroo, the first armored personnel carrier derived from a tank chassis to see widespread operational use. The Kangaroo provided genuine tank-level protection while transporting a full infantry section. First deployed during Operation Totalize near Caen in August 1944, the Kangaroo revolutionized infantry tactics. Troops could now advance directly into enemy fire, dismounting only when reaching their objectives. Lieutenant-General Guy Simonds, the commander who championed the concept, watched his troops achieve objectives that would have cost thousands of casualties using traditional methods. Infantry would load into the carriers behind the front lines, then advance directly toward enemy positions alongside supporting tanks. Once within assault distance, the rear doors would fly open and infantry would pour out already within grenade range of their objectives. German defenders had no doctrine for infantry that simply appeared in their midst, fresh and ready to fight. Over 300 Ram Kangaroos were converted, forming the basis for the first armored personnel carrier squadron. The demand for armored personnel carriers so dramatically exceeded supply that workshops began converting American M7 pre-self-propelled guns using identical methods. By removing the 105mm howitzer, they created additional troop carriers nicknamed defrocked priests by troops with dark humor. They served effectively throughout the Northwest Europe campaign, carrying infantry into battles across France, Belgium, and Germany. If one armored vehicle could claim genuine combat distinction, the Sexton self-propelled gun deserves that honor. Developed because British industry could not produce enough self-propelled artillery, the Sexton paired the excellent British 25-pounder gun howitzer with a modified Ram tank chassis. Placing it on a fully tracked armored chassis allowed artillery batteries to keep pace with advancing tank formations, while providing protection from counter-battery fire. The same Montreal factory that produced the Ram manufactured 2,150 Sextons between 1943 and 1945, equipping artillery regiments from 3 nations throughout Italy and Northwest Europe. The Sexton proved so effective that Commonwealth nations kept them in service for decades, with some countries operating them into the 1980s. That during Operation Veritable, Sexton batteries fired such concentrated barrages that German prisoners reported believing they faced far larger forces than actually existed. One Sexton crew recalled firing over 100 rounds in a single day during the push into the Rhineland. The gun barrel grew so hot that paint blistered and peeled. When the guns finally fell silent, German prisoners emerged from shattered positions by the hundreds, stunned that such firepower could come from mobile guns. Tanks win battles, but reconnaissance wins campaigns. Factories across the country produced 3 distinct armored cars to serve as the eyes of advancing Allied forces. The Fox emerged from General Motors in Oshawa, a homegrown design featuring sloped armor and a small turret capable of 70 kilometers per hour on paved roads. About 1,500 rolled off the line. The Otter, also from General Motors, sacrificed armor for even greater speed and agility. Over 1,700 served in Italy and Northwest Europe. The heaviest hitter was the Lynx, constructed at Ford's Windsor plant under American license, carrying a 37mm cannon in an enclosed turret. Over 3,000 equipped reconnaissance squadrons across multiple Allied armies. Reconnaissance crews in these vehicles often operated kilometers ahead of friendly lines, gathering intelligence that shaped Allied battle plans from Sicily to the Rhine. One Otter crew near Ortona rounded a corner to find a German Panzer IV less than 50 meters ahead. The driver threw his machine into reverse and raced back to report. That intelligence allowed Allied forces to prepare an ambush that destroyed 3 German tanks. No vehicle saw more action in more roles than the Universal Carrier. Ford of Canada produced over 29,000 of these small, tracked workhorses, making them the most numerous armored vehicle to emerge from any factory in the country. Troops called them Bren carriers after the machine gun they typically hauled, though they transported everything from mortars to ammunition to wounded soldiers. Field modifications transformed them into mobile command posts, ammunition haulers, and refueling points. But the most fearsome variant was the Wasp. Engineers fitted these carriers with flamethrowers capable of projecting burning fuel 30 meters into enemy bunkers. German soldiers who survived Wasp attacks described the experience as pure terror. Infantry units equipped with Wasps could crack fortified positions that would otherwise require artillery barrages or costly frontal assaults. Another Ram tank conversion, the Badger, replaced the main gun with a powerful flamethrower system. German defenders frequently surrendered, rather than face burning fuel being pumped directly into their bunkers and trenches. Canada even attempted to solve the problem of protecting ground forces from air attack. The Skink anti-aircraft tank mounted 4 rapid-firing 20mm cannons in a fully enclosed turret atop a Grizzly chassis. By the time the first Skinks reached Europe in early 1945, Allied air superiority made them unnecessary. Only 3 were completed, and all these fighting vehicles would have been useless without the machines that kept them supplied. The legendary military pattern trucks deserve recognition as the logistical backbone that made armored operations possible. Ford and Chevrolet facilities produced these standardized military trucks that kept ammunition, fuel, and supplies flowing to frontline units. Over 800,000 rolled off production lines during the war, equipping forces worldwide. When tanks broke down or were damaged in combat, specialized recovery vehicles were needed. Workshops converted Ram tanks into armored recovery vehicles by adding winches, cranes, and specialized equipment, allowing recovery crews to work under fire. But numbers and specifications tell only part of the story. On the morning of August 8, 1944, infantry climbed into Ram Kangaroos for the first time in combat. As German machine guns opened fire, bullets that would have killed dozens instead sparked harmlessly off armor forged in Montreal. Those soldiers reached their objectives alive because factory workers had created something the world had never seen before. The concept pioneered by those converted Rams directly shaped how armies worldwide would protect infantry for generations to come. From no tank factories in 1939 to one of the Allied world's great arsenals by 1945, this country achieved something remarkable. The workers who created these vehicles were not soldiers, but their contribution to victory was just as real. Locomotive craftsmen who learned to weld tank hulls, auto workers who assembled armored cars instead of sedans, and women who took factory positions and never looked back. Together, they produced Rams and Grizzlies, Sextons and Kangaroos, Foxes and Lynxes, and tens of thousands of universal carriers. These machines carried soldiers to victory in Italy, France, Belgium, Holland, and Germany itself. Some of those vehicles survive today. You can touch their steel, still bearing the marks of welders and riveters from another era. If you ever stand beside one, remember the hands that shaped it and the soldiers it carried home.